All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. I am your host, Patrick Moran. Thank you to everybody out there for locking in, whether you're listening to us in audio podcast form, whether you're checking us out on the video side on YouTube. Appreciate you all very much. Today is, this is dropping anyway on Thursday, which means I am joined by my good buddy Anthony Marino from Buffalo Rumblings. What's going on, man? A good tone to have. You know, it's Christmas week. I'll talk about myself in a second here, but it's Christmas week, just a couple days away, and we're coming off a convincing, maybe besides the Miami game, the best we've seen the Buffalo Bills look all season against a really good opponent. We talked about them last week. I think the Bills even exceeded our expectations with their game in Dallas. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good. I mean, like you said, it's Christmas week, so that part makes it good regardless of anything
Sure.
that's going on with the football team. But yeah, I mean, you talk about it as convincing a win as you are going to see, and not just again against the team that you would expect it. And I know we'll talk about the Chargers in a bit, but nobody was expecting that against the Cowboys, like not even for a second. So, here you can kind of take a deep breath, you can feel all right, like it's a good week.
It is. Well, it is. It's a great week.
Yeah.
Not a great week for me, man. I continue to just go through it. I'm looking rough. I feel rough. I sound rough. But I'll tell you this. So we're taping this Wednesday. This drops on Thursday. Thursday is the 21st. I promise you this much, Anth. I don't give a shit how sick I feel. When I get up on Thursday morning, I'm going to get up. I'm going to jump in the shower. I'm going to have myself a nice breakfast. Then I am going to go in my son's room and I am going to wake him up, say, get your ass in the shower, get yourself a nice breakfast. And then we are going to go to a pub and we are going to sit down and we are going to have a beer and we're going to have some wings. And we're going to do it legally. Because he's turning 21 tomorrow, man.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So you're probably thinking, what kind of alcoholic are you right now? Talking about waking your son up on a Thursday to go have a beer at like 11 in the morning at a bar. My son's turning 21, man. And I know this might sound crazy to some people, but I have waited so long, so many years for him to be 21 years old, just to be able to sit down, kind of, I feel like a rite of passage thing with my son to be able to have, and he's not much of a drinker. We'll have some beers, you know what I'm saying? But just to be able to do it like legally at a bar, and I just the thought of it has always been something that's been real cool to me. And growing up, I always, not always, but you know, I feel like we're at the age right now where you remember a lot of some of your teenage stuff, like your thoughts, some of the things you did. But I'm sure through the years, you kind of forget about a lot of shit. You know, I know I have. I always remember being a teenager and wanting to have a beer at a bar with my dad. And unfortunately, he passed when I was 19. My dad passed away, so I never got the chance to do that.
Yeah.
And like I said, I always, my kid's going to be 21 years old someday. I want to live long enough and be able to do that. So don't give a shit how under the weather I am. Stay away from me, I guess. Don't come within 10 feet of me if you don't want to get sick, if you think I'm contagious. I'm not. I already know what I have. But yeah, I can't wait, man. I'm so excited about it.
Well, that's awesome. You know what? I mean, for as you started telling that, I was like, I wasn't quite sure where this was going. I'm like, is Pat the type of guy that does like all his shopping in one day and you're just gonna bang everything out and then this and that? But that will be great for both of you. And it's funny you talk about that stuff when we're younger. You don't appreciate it as much then as you should, but it provides those things that you look back on, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, man. Can't wait. So anyway, like you said, we're going to talk about the Chargers in a little bit because I guess we have to. I mean, it is a football game and it's a big game for the Bills. It's just as important as the New England game next week and even the Miami finale because they simply have to win the football game. But we'll get to that in a few minutes. Going back a little bit to last week, we both predicted a Bills win. So like I said, we're not surprised the Bills won. I think maybe the fashion that they won was surprising. And I'm not even talking so much about the score because Dallas came into this game, pretty much unbeatable at home, but, a mid team on the road. So I don't think it's a huge shock that the Bills won convincingly, but it's the manner that they did it. Like if we did a preview last week, and I don't think either of us thought for 2 seconds that Josh Allen would go 7 of 15 for 90 some yards, and Stephon Diggs would have maybe around 49. I think he had 49 yards receiving. Gabe Davis no catches, Shakir no catches, Kincaid no catches, Dawson Knox no catches, Sherfield no catches, Hardy no catches, and it's like they still whooped on Dallas, and it's because of the running game. I mean, James Cook was sensational, and for people who are old enough to have been watching the Bills for a long time now, you definitely saw some of those Thurman Thomas-esque type runs and coming out of the backfield. Just talk about this running game and to the usage of the running backs under Joe Brady, because that is probably, aside from Josh taking off with the ball more now and running some more design plays, this has been the other thing that's been the unmistakable Joe Brady factor, using the running backs more effectively and in the passing game too.
Yeah, it is something that that I've been waiting a long time for, right? I mean, I joke with a lot of folks, with Bruce Nolan and Joe Marino and Jeremy White, and with you about like, oh gosh, the Bills should get a running back in the first round. Right?
Every
How
year.
can we mock Bijan Robinson to the Bills or whatever? And it's not just about the talent, right? It's about the usage. It's about the scheme. And James Cook, okay, he has the talent. Like, you don't do what he does on Sunday by mistake. And we've seen flashes with it. And in many ways, you're just probably thinking to yourself, like, gosh, you need a bit more of it. Now, Sunday was on the extreme, right? I mean, I feel like that was almost you're going back in a time machine to, like you said, only 15 pass attempts from Josh Allen. Many folks, you'd be thinking to yourself, like, good gosh, what are you doing? You got this,
Sure.
all pro juggernaut, whatever it may be. But just to be able to say, like, hey, we can do this if necessary. We can dominate through the run. It doesn't mean it's something that the Bills are going to do every week, but you look at the matchup that they had with Dallas, them kind of having a light defense along those lines. And I'll give this credit too, right, to Joe Brady. You're doing it and it worked. So let's just keep doing it. And if they can't stop it and you're just going to get 7 or 8 yards a clip, just keep getting 7 and 8 yards a clip. Like, let's go. And it's a huge credit to James Cook and kind of the player that he was, like you said, to Joe Brady. And I'll throw Ty Johnson in there as well.
Yeah.
He is effective when he has the ball in his hands. And it was just like, what was it, like maybe 9 carries for 54 yards? Like,
Yeah.
All right, but a dominant running performance. And again, it wasn't this, oh, well, we have to pass the ball because of this, or, let's keep Diggs happy, or, Josh needs to throw the ball. What are we doing? Dominating performance. And it all came through the run.
Do you feel, or did you feel at the time that, because Ken Dorsey got fired after the Denver game, and did you feel at the time to some extent that was a scapegoat move at the time? And did you feel that maybe with Joe Brady coming in, because he was the quarterback's coach and becoming, the interim OC, maybe at the time, did you just feel like maybe it's just the players needed a little bit of changes of scenery and just, sometimes you fire somebody and someone else comes in and you kind of rally around them a little bit? Because I kind of feel like at the time, anyway, I felt like Dorsey was a scapegoat. But little did I know that Joe Brady's philosophy, and I want to speak on that more in a minute, because I thought you just brought up a great point about what he was doing till he found a weakness and just went after it. But they're different types of OCs, and I'm kind of noticing that already. So I don't know that can do, or maybe he was a scapegoat, but there's definitely a difference in this offense right now between the two for sure.
Yeah, and both of those things can be true. And I did feel that Ken Dorsey was a scapegoat, right? And I think that's okay to say. Like, you can think to the Denver game, like, okay, could the offense have played better? Absolutely. But the offense left the field with a lead in that game, right? And it was the defense that let the Broncos march down and get into field goal position, and then the special teams that allowed 12 men on the field and didn't correct that, and all those types of things. I don't even want to go through all that, but yeah, I did feel like he was a little bit of a scapegoat. But right, and here's the but: it doesn't mean that a change wasn't a positive thing. I don't even want to say wasn't necessary, because that even in itself, it's like, two different offensive coordinators can call things differently and both have success, and it can look different. And what that level of success is, there can be a question with that. But it was necessary. And again, someone can be effective, but someone else can come in and give a new voice, give some new concepts, give some new energy. And I do feel like Dorsey was not maybe an energy coach, right? And Brady seems to be that, when you see him interacting with the players and those things. And I don't know, but for right now, I think we can say it's working. So scapegoat or not, credit to Sean McDermott. And I realize giving Sean McDermott credit these days is not something that happens too often. He made the move. He made a tough move, right? Because Dorsey, he's not a jerk. He's likable, beloved by the players, this and that. But he made a move that was necessary. And for right now, it seems to be paying off.
All right, we're still talking here with Anthony Marino from Buffalo Rumblings. Want to let you know that today's episode is sponsored by Imperial Pizza, now with 2 locations. Of course, you got your staple 1035 Abbott Road location. Now they're also at 1665 May Street near Canisius College. So make sure you go check them out. Some of the best pizza, wings, and subs in town. All right, so you had a great point about Ken Dorsey, and I've been saying this the entire time. Not everyone agrees with me. In fact, Jordan Poyer's brother, Jeremiah, part of, one of the Buffalo Rumblings guys that kind of, I don't want to say we got into it, but we respectfully disagreed. I've maintained all along that when it comes to Josh Allen, that it was not Ken Dorsey being the one that kind of limited Josh Allen using his legs. I think that was a Sean McDermott thing. I think that was something that was part of strategic, part of his plan for the season to maybe keep Josh fresher for later in the season, to not use his legs as much, not take a beating running the football. Now, of course, all hands are on deck. The Bills in the second half of the season found themselves in must win. And we can debate that. Some people will say, well, Dorsey's the OC. And I say it was McDermott who said, listen, I don't want him running the football. We could debate that, but we won't. But one thing that you brought up, I completely agree with, is Ken Dorsey, just like even Brian Daboll, as great as Brian Daboll was, and there were times where they would get too cute. Like something was working and then they would get away from it. And that's what I'm loving about Joe Brady, like this Dallas game. And you said it and you're spot on. They found a weakness in that defense and they just exploited it, and they kept exploiting it, and they didn't get away from it. And they didn't try to get cute and say, all right, well, Gabe's got to eat. Stefan's got to eat. Josh has to eat. They just went, Joe Brady just went with what worked. And that's one thing I'm learning very early on about him. By the way, get that interim tag off him. He's the OC now, okay? And he probably will be, hopefully, for a couple years. But, yeah, man, I like Joe Brady from what I've seen, just the way he'll find a weakness in a defense. It might be with running the ball, it might be throwing the ball, but he'll just keep attacking it.
Yeah, and listen, and I keep reminding myself too, it's been 4 games, because I've said, remove the interim tag as well. And then there's the part of just like, okay, it's 4 games. Mm-hmm. Like there's no need to rush. There's probably agents involved and negotiating and this and that. And for right now, it's probably just like, listen, let's focus on getting to the playoffs. Rest of this season, like there will be time, all those things that need to take place. But it's also only been 4 games. Like I don't want to get ahead of myself. Like heck, after the Dolphins game, we were probably worried that Ken Dorsey was going to get plucked to be a head coach and go someplace. So
that's fair.
I'm trying to stay within reason, but I'm more than cautiously optimistic. I'm really optimistic about Joe Brady and what he's done so far, and just the Bills' offense looking good.
You feel like James Cook is emerging into a legitimate star player? I mean, don't look now. There's only 3 weeks left in the season. This guy's second in the NFL in rushing, and he's third in the NFL in total yards from scrimmage. If we would have been having a season preview discussion a handful of months ago, and I would have said, here's a bold prediction, James Cook is going to be second in the NFL rushing, and only Tyreek Hill and Christian McCaffrey would have more yards from scrimmage than James Cook, you would have felt like, what? That's a little bit outlandish, but here we are with just 3 weeks left, man.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. And I think the best example with it, and I multiple times I've said today, I like the idea of having a marquee running back. Joe Marino on Locked On Bills yesterday had said he had gotten a question saying, listen, I realize you're not one to ever talk about giving a contract extension, a second contract to running backs, but the way James Cook is performing, what do you think? And Joe was like, yeah, let's see how things look next year. But, not the like, oh, that's the steadfast rule. You don't pay running backs. You don't this, you don't anything. Like, so for me to say like, hey, this guy is the real deal, it's one thing. To have Joe Marino thinking that, yeah, this is someone you probably, need to entertain about having a contract extension and giving a second deal to a running back in Buffalo, that to me was a sign of just like, okay, I'm not the only crazy one here. Everybody's, starting to warm up to this a little bit.
I feel like although it sucked at the time, and I was really annoyed at the time, that Denver game when he got benched after a fumble, which by the way, I think what annoyed me the most was that it wasn't a careless turnover by James Cook. It was a hell of a play by a Denver defender to strip the ball when he was getting tackled. Sometimes that stuff just happens. But anyway, kind of feel like the light went off a little bit for him there, because that rest of that game, that Denver game, he was running like a man possessed. And now, like I said, you've really added this element. I mean, he's caught passes all season long, but now it's not even just like little dumps in the flat out of the backfield. I mean, he's running full routes and catching the ball in the end zone. He's done it 2 straight weeks. He's caught a ball in the end zone. Would have had another touchdown catch, but he had a drop on Sunday, which whatever, who cares? Not a big deal. But feeling like they're getting the whole James Cook experience now. They're really utilizing him in a lot of different ways and not just running the football. That's the most fun part.
Well, and it's that part of the experience that is making it unique, right? I mean, we know Gabe Davis has not been having the success that we'd like him to see this year. James Cook being a viable,
an understatement.
Yeah. So Cook being a viable pass catching option, that works. But, I mean, we joke all the time whenever you mention, JD McKissick and this and that, and, oh, they traded for Nyheim Hines and, supposed to have these pass catching backs. Maybe it's not so much the back because you've, had guys that maybe have the ability, but it's just that usage. And maybe that is the piece where when you talk about Joe Brady utilizing him in a way that it's not just a dump off that you mentioned, but really being that weapon in the passing game and seeing, as you said, 2 games in a row where he's having success with it.
I think maybe the most impressive thing with Joe Brady is the usage, how he has made Ty Johnson, a guy who, again, going back maybe a month or so, I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, why is he even on the practice squad? Why is Leonard Fournette not being elevated? That was something I remember. I spent a couple Saturdays, because typically on a Sunday game, it's Saturday, 4 p.m. Practice squad elevations are due. And I kept saying to myself, why is Leonard Fournette not being elevated? Well, this is why. Nothing against him, but Ty Johnson has just been, he's been really good. I don't know, though. I kind of like when the Bills struggle a little bit at running back, because then it kind of makes me look forward to the offseason with you and your obsession with getting a first-round pick. I think the Travis Etienne stuff a couple of years ago, that was the best. Breece Hall actually the year Cook got drafted in the second round, that was fun too. But yeah, dude, you pounding the table for that first-round running back. I don't think we're going to be able to do that this coming season, man. What are you going to do?
No, I'm gonna tap out. We'll be looking at again, free agent veteran running backs looking to sign on like a $1.5 million deal, to fill the Latavius Murray kind of role for the Bills. But when it comes to the draft, it'll be all about the wide receivers. I
was gonna say, man, I really hope you're about to say wide receiver, because I love Gabe. And I got into it. I don't want to say I got into it, but a fan, I was doing a live post game on Sunday, and a fan suggested, because there was that one long throw on Sunday where Josh didn't connect with Gabe Davis and Gabe just couldn't track the ball. And a fan suggested that it was a lack of effort. And I don't buy that at all. I think Gabe Davis is out there giving 100% every snap. He's a great run blocker. So he's not completely and utterly useless, because he's still bringing something to the team, and he's a captain, man. So it's not a lack of effort. It's a lack of execution. It's a lack of his ability to maybe to be able to track that football. Like that's just not what he does. But no matter how good you feel about him as a person and as somebody who is capable of making plays, dude, the bottom line is 3 of the last 4 games, he's had quite literally 0 catches, literally 0 catches in 3 of the last 4 games. And I'm starting to wonder, and I want to ask you this. Do you think that it's plausible to maybe start taking some reps away from him, man. I'm almost ready to see what maybe Trent Sherfield could do in that role. Trent Sherfield's a good blocker too, but maybe he could do more in the passing game. I don't know. I mean, you're getting zero, and I get it. Like this Dallas game didn't matter because they were running the ball so effectively, but man, you're not getting anything from him. And I mean, literally nothing from him, production wise, offensively.
Yeah, I don't see a viable option that it's worth making the shift. I mean, he's still playing the vast majority of your snaps. It is not for a lack of effort. It's not for a lack of run blocking. The offense that we've seen again under Joe Brady these last 4 weeks, okay, it's working. So yeah, I'm not throwing in the towel. If there was another option, I mean, I don't look at Trent Sherfield maybe in the same way that you do to say that, oh, this is a guy that's going to make a difference or give you an uptick. So I'm not at that point yet. I mean, talk to me after Saturday night, maybe finding out things go. Maybe I'll shift my thinking just a bit, but I'm not there yet.
I will say I was ready. A lot of people were ready to throw in the towel on Gabe, and then he had like 6 catches for over 100 yards. I think it was against Philly a couple weeks ago. So it is still there. It's just, I don't know, man. It's just so frustrating. And you wonder if there are other options on the team. And speaking of other options on the team, by the way, some really good news, some potential big news. Jordan Phillips has surgery, which sucks. And I've been hard on this dude. I have blasted him on Twitter all season long. But he played one hell of a game against Dallas. I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah.
And he gets hurt. I'm like, come on, man. You know, another injury to this team. But the good news is DaQuan Jones started his practice window this week. He's already been ruled out for this week. I would suspect he probably doesn't play against the Patriots either, but there is a real chance that he will be back for that week 18 finale at Miami. And you know, I still have a good enough memory to remember the first month of the season. And I was making an argument that I thought DaQuan Jones was probably the defensive MVP. I mean, he was playing at an all-pro level. So if they get him back, that is huge because not just because of what he does, which he does a lot, but I think Ed Oliver goes to another level when DaQuan Jones is playing alongside him.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I say this because and every player is different. You don't want a guy to come back too soon or, hey, if he's going to be out there in a shell of himself or playing hurt, then what does that look like? So I want to be optimistic with this, but it's just like, hey, let's see what we've got here. I mean, gosh, if he can come back at, I don't even want to say like 75%. That's not high enough, but right. Like you're getting to like 85, 90% of who you were before. Now we're in business. And listen, you still have Poona Ford who can come in and, fill the spot for Jordan Phillips if it's a couple weeks before DaQuan Jones can get back. And I'll say this too. I mean, he's a great follow on Twitter, Jones. I mean, even just yesterday, you knew his practice window was opening because he just tweets out a picture of himself at a Bills practice with a big smiley face emoji. And you're just like, you know what? He's a good follow. And you look at this and just think, okay, talk about getting somebody back at the time when you really need it. If you are going to get to the playoffs, he is certainly a difference maker. So I'm excited about what this can be.
It was funny when he tweeted that out because there were a lot of quote tweets with like the big eyes, the googly eyes. That was fun to say. And for what it's worth, Jordan Phillips has said that he expects to be able to get back. He hopes he can get back if the Bills end up making the playoffs. We're really even keeled today, man. You're not too high. Well, you wouldn't have no reason to be too low because this team's playing really well right now. But
yeah,
you're keeping it nice and even keel. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm the overreactor. I'm the one, the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows. You're keeping it nice and balanced here today when it comes to to the Bills. We're gonna take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're gonna talk Chargers only because we have to. I mean, the Bills are playing them this week, but I'm not looking forward to talking about the Chargers. But we will right after this break. All right, I'm back here with Anthony Marino. We're previewing the Buffalo Bills LA Chargers game on Saturday night prime time. yeah, before the break, I was kind of dismissing the Chargers. Maybe I shouldn't do that. They're 5-9 for the season. But dude, this is a team they've lost 5 of their last 6, including a 63-21 shellacking, an embarrassing, one of the more probably embarrassing losses that franchise has suffered in many, many years last Thursday. And I remember watching it, and I'm thinking to myself, because I knew the Bills are playing them next. I'm like, keep this game competitive, lose the game, but keep it competitive enough, because once it got to be like 49-7, 56-7, I'm like, you know what? Brandon Staley's getting fired tomorrow. There's no doubt about it. And he did. So they fired their coach after this game, and they fired their GM after this game, which I never liked that, because you seem to, just all sports. You fire the coach, you seem to get a short-term lift from the players, maybe a little bit of enthusiasm. But again, this is a team that's lost 5 of their last 6. And most importantly, their quarterback, Justin Herbert, who do a lot of damage. He broke his finger and he's done. So Easton Stick is the starting quarterback for the Chargers on Saturday. He's been sacked already 5 times in 1.5 games. Your early initial thoughts on this game and the Chargers?
I'm treating the Chargers like the Kansas City Chiefs.
I knew it.
There's 0% chance I'm looking at this, and I don't care what the point spread is. I don't care who's playing quarterback. I hate the fact that they fired their head coach, because every time you see that, right, it becomes there's a bump that comes with it, right? As a team, you're embarrassed because you got your head coach fired. You're also embarrassed because you just gave up 63 points to a guy named Aiden O'Connell. Right. So you go through all of this and you just think to yourself and just like, all right, teams are winning with backup quarterbacks all across the NFL. Again, Aiden O'Connell, rookie, whatever round pick he was, just put up 63 leading the Raiders offense against the Chargers. We're seeing backup quarterbacks win games for Indianapolis, the Houston Texans, for the Cincinnati Bengals. It's almost like, good gosh, do quarterbacks matter anymore? Like, I don't know. Joe Flacco is throwing for 350 some yards and winning games. So there is zero part of me looking past the Chargers and just thinking, oh, this is a ho-hum game. Like, no, there is none of that whatsoever. You come out guns a-blazing, you put your foot on their throat, and you do not step off until it is zeros across the board. So you said I was even keeled. Now my blood pressure is boiling because you're just like, we're not going to talk about the Chargers because they suck. I could see Keenan Allen catching 20 passes across and whatever. No, you treat them like the Chiefs, whatever nemesis that you have. I've watched this team lose this season to Mac Jones. I saw Tyrod Taylor should have beaten them. It is
Zach Wilson beat him.
Wilson, just my God, no. So Easton Stick, don't make him look like. I'll be honest though, if you gave me 15 names, there's no way I would have guessed Easton Stick. I've never. Most guys, you've heard of through draft stuff or college football, whatever. But it's just don't make this guy a household name on Saturday night. Don't let it happen, because there's too much wacky shit that is happening this season. And no way.
I'm reminded of during the 2021 season, I was at Resurgence Brewery downtown, and Jay Spence from Rumblings was doing a live show there. And 2 of the guests were myself and Nate Gary, and we were previewing the Bills Jacksonville game. And the Bills were, just crushing everybody. And Jacksonville, a couple years ago anyway, they were kind of like a laughingstock. They sucked. And I kind of remember, especially Nate, and I'm going to throw him under the bus a little bit, but Nate just completely and utterly dismissed the Jaguars. It was looking so much past that game. It was like that game didn't even exist. And we started talking about big picture stuff. And of course, that was the day where the other Josh Allen from Jacksonville had himself a day, and the Bills lost in Jacksonville. So sure. And you look at even this year and some of their ugly losses to inferior quarterbacks and opponents. Man, it's really hard to get there. With Justin Herbert are done for the season, Austin Eckler, who is an all-world, at least fantasy football player, he hasn't done shit this year. He's been semi-benched. He's only got 5 touchdowns for the year. He's only averaging 3.6 yards per carry. Keenan Allen, don't know what his status is, but he's going through a heel injury. Mike Williams is already done. Joe Bosa is done for the season. On the other side of the ball, he's been done. So this offensive line's been terrible. They've given up 34 sacks. I think the only two things that scare me is one, which you hit on, which is completely valid, is the quarterback, or not the quarterback, the head coach change, because I do think that might galvanize some players some. And then old friend, UB guy, Khalil Mack. This guy is a monster this year. He's got 15 sacks this season. And like I said, the Chargers are 6 in sacks. So, I mean, they do have some things that could hurt you. But I guess it comes down to, do you think this Bills team has really changed? Is this the same Bills team that we saw through, the first 12 games or so? Because I'm seeing a Bills team right now that just looks like they're just going to roll through some, especially if you're playing a shit team. And the Chargers are a shit team. Let's not make any mistake about it. I know I'm pissing you off. You don't like this.
No, you're not. You know what, you're bringing up old emotions though, right? Like you think back to this season of just playing down to the competition in certain games, right? And it's like, I can even include the Broncos in that. I mean, the Broncos rebounded, and credit to them for what they've done, but just in enough situations, it's just like, this team is not good enough to take anybody lightly. And for me, it is just like, okay, it is, every game is a playoff game from here on out. These next two definitely are, right? Like there's no option. If you lose to Easton Stick, or if you lose to Bailey Zappi, you don't deserve to go to the playoffs.
Agreed.
So like, but you don't take anyone lightly. We've, listen, you can talk about whatever upset in the NFL. You're a fan of March Madness. You talk about 15 seeds beating 2 seeds and all this type of shit. No, it is just like, there better be a level of focus this week of just like, again, you're playing a morph between the 49ers and the Chiefs, and this is who you're going in, and leave it all out.
We see it around the league. I mean, good teams lose to bad teams. It does happen. So, look, man, to sit here and say there's zero chance that the Bills could lose on the road in prime time to the Chargers, we're going to have 53 guys or 47 guys out there playing for a head coach who's making his debut as an interim coach. Sure, I get that. Let me ask you this, though. Do you think the Bills right now are the best team in the AFC, or one of the top 2 teams in the AFC? Because I do. It's funny. They might not make the playoffs, but, and everybody says it, no, nobody wants to play the Bills in the playoffs. It's true. Like, I'm at the point right now where it's like, I don't know that there's a better team in the AFC, except maybe Baltimore. That's it, man. I think they're right there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you can make the case. I mean, and you can make the case for a number of teams, right? Like it's, but yeah, I can say it. I can see it. I mean, there's no one that I would look at and say, oh, there's no chance the Bills would have to beat the Ravens or the Dolphins or the Chiefs or the Jaguars or any of those pieces, right? And it's just like, yeah, no, I would go into any of those games expecting the Bills to win.
You sound like a high school kid and who's got a crush on the girl, but he's a little bit afraid to get hurt. Yeah, it's like, you don't want to be outlandish, you don't want to say nothing crazy, or you're afraid because this team's hurt you so much. You're like, especially this season, it's like, be a little careful here. I don't want to be overly optimistic because they're setting you up to get hurt. And I get that.
I've been hurt before, Pat. What I mean? Like this team can break your heart. So it's but it is a different feeling, right? Like, gosh, you think back that loss to the Eagles where it's like, oh my gosh, like you just pissed that one away. But then you come back off the bye and it's like, okay, you beat the Chiefs, which wasn't exactly pretty, but you do it. And you make the stop at the end, which you haven't done. So it's just like, you get that. Then you dominate Dallas and you're just like, all right, that's different, right? That's a different type of step. You beat the nemesis and the Chiefs, who, again, you could say during the regular season, the Bills have done what they need to, but yeah, it's okay to feel a level of confidence right now.
Sure. I got 3 keys for me for this game, and it could easily just be one, and that would be as simple as don't blow it. You're the better football team by far, and just don't blow it. But to be a little bit more specific, I would say the biggest key one is just not to give this team hope. You come out, don't play the Bills. Not really under Joe Brady, but as a whole this season, the Bills have played crappy offense to start the game. And That happened in New England, and they didn't play well early, and they gave New England hope, and New England hung around and stayed competitive and won the game. So I would say first and foremost, get off to a good start. They did it last week against Dallas. They did it against Kansas City. So keep that trend going. You get up on this team 17-7, and I feel like it's going to be lights out. So number one is just the obvious. Like I said, just make sure you get off to a good start. Don't let a inferior team get any hope going into the locker room at halftime, you know?
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, and it's not to pick on you, but when you say like don't blow it, I feel like that has been Sean McDermott's MO in some games, right? Of just like, oh, we're the better team, we're just play a decent game of football, and we will be better than them. And it's just like, you know what? Even the win over Washington this season, right? Like it kind of was. Washington was just sort of horrible, and like you kind of like let them hang around a little bit, and then down the stretch you really pulled away from them. It's just like, no, it's not a like don't blow it. It's a like foot on the gas. Like go in and say like we are going to kick this team's ass and actually do it. Kind of like, you know what I said mentality before of like when you go into the game against the Chiefs, I'm going to walk that back because I feel like McDermott has like almost too much respect for Andy Reid as, you know, his mentor and someone that he worked under. Like bring that same kind of mentality that you do to when you play the Dolphins, right? Think back to the Dolphins earlier in this year, and it is just like, now we are throwing haymakers. This game, you might land one or two, but guess what? We are going to keep punching the entire time. So I don't want it to be like a don't blow it. I want it to be like a we are going to blow you out, and we know we're going to blow you out, and we're not going to stop.
Yeah. Good point. Easton Stick, put this guy to the ground 4 times. Come on. Easton Stick,
seven times.
Come on. Come on.
Right? Yeah. 4 is too low.
Yeah. Well, minimum 4 times. I always, as a Buffalo sports fan, not just the Bills, but the Sabres too. And by the way, dude, the Sabres are atrocious right now. What an embarrassing. We're taping this early Wednesday. By the way, I usually say that at some point during the show. In case anything goes down with the Bills and we didn't hit on it today, that's because we're taping this on Wednesday morning for a Thursday night audio drop, a Wednesday late night video drop. But anyway, the Sabres went out at home on Tuesday night. They get Jack Quinn back and just shit the bed. Down 7-1 at one point. The fans are booing them. There's a smattering of fire Donnie chants. I mean, what an absolute disappointment this team that had playoff expectations that they've been. And it's almost Christmas time. And they're getting themselves in a hole where people are like, there's still a lot of games left. Yeah, there's a lot of teams that jump, and they don't look like they're going anywhere. Anyway, I'm going off on something completely different. But it's annoying. Holy shit, was that game frustrating. My buddy, I mean, I know you followed the team a little bit. So you know UPL, the goalie?
Oh, yeah.
His initials UPL. My buddy we were at the restaurant last night watching the game, and my buddy, he let in like a really bad goal. And he didn't start. Devin Levi started and gave up 4 goals, and then they pulled him, and UPL was even worse. But anyway, instead of calling him UPL, he started calling him Poopy L. I just thought that was funny. Oh, Poopy L, make a save, man. Anyway, and then they call them soft ass bitches too. So I guess that's what they look like on the ice right now. I kind of lost track where I was going with this. Oh, my point was I'm starting to get trained to find creative ways for the Bills or the Sabres to lose like in improbable fashion or have this funny name. And I think of this season and all the ebbs and flows and the position they got themselves in right now, which is not a good one. I mean, they're going to, if they make the playoffs, they'll be playing their best football because they literally can't afford to lose a game. So they're probably going to be on a 5-game winning streak if they get into the playoffs. That's going to be great. But if something goes wrong, can you imagine it being because of Easton Stick? The Easton Stick game, and that's what knocks the Bills pretty much essentially out of the playoffs. The Easton Stick game. Come on, that's why I feel like the Bills can't lose this game because that just feels too ridiculous to me. The Easton Stick game. All right, I'll give you 7. Put him on the ground 7 times. Get this guy off. Come on, man. I'm pissed. They haven't even played yet. I'm just the thought of losing the Easton Stick is just I can't.
But that's good. You should. I want everyone to feel that way. There should be no. You can't overlook anyone at this point. Whatever. You just can't do it.
I'm overlooking.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I am.
They lose this game. I'm finding you.
Pardon my French, man. pardon my French, 40 something minutes in or whatever. They can't lose the fucking Easton Stick. Just cannot happen, Anthony. It cannot happen. Last point, key point, whatever you want to call it. I feel like the Chargers are watching the film from the Dallas game. And they're like, yo, we're not going to let James Cook just gash us. We're going to get more guys in the box. We're going to make a more concerted effort to stop the run. I think that this is a game where Josh Allen will throw it plenty. And I think it's a great chance to, we talked about Gabe Davis earlier. I think this is a great chance to get Gabe Davis going and to get Khalil Shakir going, because I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for the Bills. Obviously, Stephon Diggs will get his, but this is a good game to get Gabe Davis and Khalil Shakir. I think they could be a key to this game as well.
Yeah, I actually think before those two guys, Dalton Kincaid, 2 drops against the Cowboys.
Sure.
I look at this as a bounce back for him. He's been playing hurt a little bit, had a thumb issue on the injury report last week. This week it's a shoulder. So assuming that he's good to go, but I can see that being a bit of a bounce back, for him on Saturday night and kind of getting things back on track.
All right. Put your money where your mouth is, man. It's prediction time, our weekly predictions. Go ahead. Unless you have anything that I missed in terms of like a key to the game for the Bills, but then I want to get a prediction from you.
Yeah, I'm going to go 31-20. Prediction for the Bills to win. Again, the Chargers show a little bit more fight than fans are probably going to expect, just because you've got a new head coach in, the embarrassment that they had last week, probably going to hang around a little bit longer than any of us would like them to. Not a situation where the game will ever really be in doubt, but more of just one of those scenarios where it's a little bit closer than anybody would have really expected it to going into Saturday night. It's a short week for the Bills. They're traveling across the country. The Chargers are playing at home, and they've got a little bit of extra rest, having played on Thursday night football. So, you add all those things up, as much as I would rather it be a little bit of a ass-kicking slobber knocker, I'll take 31-20.
Listen, I'm sure most people would take 10-7 right now. Just win the game, and that's all ultimately that matters. I think the Bills are going to struggle one of the next 2 games against an inferior opponent, but I feel like it might be New England, even though that game's in Buffalo. Everything you said made perfect sense, and it would be the formula for it to be a close game. But Buffalo's going to win this game 37-10. I think they're just going to smack the shit out of the Chargers, get up on them early, keep the foot on the gas, and give them a beating. So I'm going to go 30.
You're right and I'm wrong.
I hope either of us are right, because that means the Bills win, because that's all that's going to matter at the end of the day. Like I said, the NFL is a tough place to win on the road against anybody. Yeah. And there are factors, the West Coast trip, the short week. There's lots of the galvanization maybe of the players. I mean, we don't know for sure. We're not around that team and that fan base, so we don't know how they feel about, if it's the coach, this and that. But yeah, just win the game. And Anthony and I both think they're going to. Before we get out of here, again, we're just a couple days before Christmas. We'll do our finish the sentence segment. 3 quick Christmas related questions, I should say anyway. A Marino family Christmas tradition is blank.
Yeah, I was trying to think with this. I mean, as the kids were younger, I would read The Night Before Christmas to them before bed every Christmas Eve. Last couple of years, as they've gotten older, we've gotten away from that a little bit. Usually by the time you're getting the kids back into bed. The other thing is, though, that is big for us. My grandmother did it. My mom did it. I do it now. I make Pitzel cookies each year, and yesterday spent about 5 hours making, hundreds of these. It's just like, and I have to make so many of them because between the 5 of us that live here, we eat enough even before you get to Christmas that they just become this go-to. So, with a lot of it, you think of those traditional cookies that the family would make. For me, that's always been a favorite. It's something I'm happy to do each year. So that was really the first thing that came to mind.
That's cool. That is cool. For me, and it's changing now. It's always been the grandparents come to the house before the kids would open their gifts, which at times would be annoying to the kids because they weren't, we made them wait until grandma and grandpa got here. But that's going to change this year. But grandfather doesn't get around well anymore. So this year we're actually going to open up the gifts. And when I say kids, literally my kids are literally adults now. Like my daughter's 25 and lives with their boyfriend, but she comes over in the morning. My son lives with me, but he's got a girlfriend now. So he's actually going to his girlfriend's house at 8 a.m. on Christmas morning. Do some gifts with her and her family. And then they're coming back. So around 10 o'clock, we're going to open the gifts. But the new tradition is going to have to be, God willing, for a lot of years that we'll open up our gifts and then we'll go to grandparents' house afterwards instead of them coming here. So that'll change. And then the other one, which, knock on wood, is still hopefully going to go for a long time, is one of my cousins, or actually my wife's cousins, I should say. She has a family Christmas party at night. Like we all get together after, doing all the family stuff with the kids and stuff, and the adults come, have a couple cocktails, listen to Christmas music. So that's always fun. So we have a family Christmas party, Christmas night every year. Well, it's on a Monday. Got to work on Tuesday. I don't know, man, about this year. Anyway, all right. Favorite Christmas movie or TV or cartoon character is blank.
Oh wait, favorite character.
Yeah.
All right. This one is throwing me for a loop because I thought you were saying favorite Christmas or movie or TV show.
Well, let's do that too.
All right. So I have a non-traditional for that, which certainly, there's all the favorites that people have. But listen, over these past, whatever, it's probably been 6-7 years since it came out. Daddy's Home 2. Will Ferrell.
That's pretty good.
Mark Goldberg. Not Mark. Mark Wahlberg.
Marky Mark. Come on, man.
You go through with this. Mel Gibson's character, John Lithgow, fantastic. I laugh at this movie so much, and I feel like it's at Christmas. It's these families coming together to celebrate at Christmas time. I think it's hysterical. Some of it is over the top, but for what Wahlberg and Will Ferrell have together, it is such a great dynamic, and the five of us can watch it. We had it on the other night, and we know everything, and we're just belly laughing through the entire thing. But if you're going to go with a favorite character, though, I'll have to go with Ralphie from A Christmas Story. I mean, just, I think you look to that for a movie that, 40 years now. Yeah. And that character you can relate to in so many different ways. The daydreaming in class, the stupid pranks with his friends, checking the mail to get some crappy toy that came in that you were, saved the UPC symbols for and sent in. And for Peter Billingsley to play that role as a kid as well as he did, and for that to hold up over all these years, I mean, if you're talking a favorite character, Ralphie was just perfection. The bunny pajamas from his aunt, like, it is just everything to helping his dad change the tire. I'm running through the entire movie now, but if there is a favorite character, that kid is just fantastic.
Do you still throw it on like every Christmas? It runs for 24 hours? I don't know, TBS or TNT, one of those. Do you still throw it on at least at some point at Christmas every year?
Yeah, for me, it would always be Christmas Eve. Kids go to bed, you're kind of getting stuff ready, and you have that on in the background, right? And it's just one of those pieces of, you're tired, you just want to go to bed, the kids are going to get up early. And of course, there's always a few times where it's like, all right, I should be taking care of business a little bit, and I'm find myself staring at the TV, chuckling for a minute. That's always kind of, I guess you could say, another tradition too. So
I hate when people hate on that movie because it's, the popular movie and it's played every year for 24 straight hours or whatever. People like to hate on it. I love the movie. It's one of my favorites. Did you see the sequel that came out? I think it was last year or 2 years ago, Christmas Story. What was it? It's not A Christmas Story 2. It's something with, I forgot the exact title right now, but it's a sequel.
It's kind of like there's a rumor out there this movie Rocky 5 exists. I refuse to acknowledge that it's there. I don't know.
Dude, Rocky 5 sucked. I'm drawing a blank. It's not A Christmas Story 2 because there actually was A Christmas Story 2 years ago. I forgot. Maybe it's another Christmas Story. I don't remember, but the sequel's all right. I mean, it's nowhere near as good as the original. My favorite Christmas movie, since we're going movies too, I have to go with Scrooged. I love Bill Murray in that movie, and it's just It's hilarious, man. It was laugh out loud, at least at the time when it came out to me. It was laugh out loud funny. It's just, of course, it's a more modern adaptation of Ebenezer Scrooge. She loved that shit. My favorite character is Clark Griswold from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Just a family guy who wants everything to go right for Christmas, and literally nothing goes right. And I'll tell you, back in those days, I mean, now it's kind of going off the deep end a little bit, but Chevy Chase was funny as hell when I was young, man.
Oh,
He
he was
was
the
he was
best.
such a good, funny character, man.
No, he you think, I mean, Clark Griswold, again, you talk about just generational, and just, you see the t-shirts now, the sweatshirts everywhere. I mean,
Sure.
that one carries on forever. And I think in a lot of ways too, I mean, you think, in the past when you would talk about great Christmas movies and characters, there would be much more traditional type of stuff, right? Like, oh, hey, the family, this and that. Here it's like, yeah, we're taking the National Lampoon's Vacation and we're inserting this into Christmas, and having that movie that many folks can relate to, of just like, oh my gosh, like, you want everything to be perfect. It's not, it's over the top, and
Sure.
it's fantastic.
Do you watch newer Christmas movies, or are you pretty much, when you do have the time to actually sit down and watch something, you always go back to the classics?
No, there's a few newer ones that we've really enjoyed. I'll tell you, if you haven't seen it, Kurt Russell playing Santa Claus in the Christmas Chronicles.
Love that movie.
Fabulous, especially the first one on Netflix, and he was an awesome Santa Claus. The other one that I think a little bit underrated, but we're a Pitch Perfect family here. Anna Kendrick starring in Noel on Disney Plus. It's fun, it's
I've
cute.
seen
The
it.
tradition of Santa Claus and coming down through the family. I thought that one was fantastic
Yeah.
too. So those are new ones that definitely stand out.
Last question here. We'll go back to the Bills here. A little bit of maybe being a Grinch a little bit, but if the Bills, as hard as it is to fathom, but if the Bills lose to the Chargers on Saturday night, that's going to ruin your Christmas by blank percent.
0%. It's
Really?
Christmas. It's Christmas. The game's not on Christmas Day, or one of those pieces where, you think last year when the Bills played on Thanksgiving against the Lions, and there's definitely was that sense of just like, okay, am I going to be screaming at the television on Thanksgiving Day while we're getting things ready? The game's on the 23rd. Christmas is 2 days later. We're going to be with family. That part is all going to be great. 0% chance it ruins Christmas.
Anthony Marino is a far better man than I am. I'm going to cheat a little bit. It'll ruin Christmas by 10% for me, because Christmas is 2 days later, and for all the things you said. But I'm still it's going to linger in my mind. So I'm going to say 10% Christmas Day. It's going to ruin my Christmas Eve by close to 100%. I'll tell you that right now, because I will get up on Sunday, and before we do allow Christmas Eve I'll ask you about that in a second too. But Christmas Eve, before we do our tradition, I actually have to tape a podcast on Sunday for Monday, and I'm going to be talking about a game that the Bills lost to the Los Angeles Chargers in Easton Stick, and it is going to 98% ruin my Christmas Eve, and I will be utterly miserable around everybody, because the Bills season, look, we're laughing, we're having fun. It's Christmas week, but the bottom line is, if the Bills lose to the Chargers, the season's over. I mean, you agree with that, right?
Completely.
All right. Well, I've been doing this every day now for a while, and 3 times a week for a long time, and talking about the Bills for as many days, weeks, and months as we have this season. And if that season gets ruined because they lose to the Chargers 2 days before Christmas, I'm going to lose my shit, man. So it's going to be 90% Christmas Eve, and then I'll put the other 10% on Christmas Day. Do you have Christmas Eve traditions? Do you want anything specific every Christmas Eve, or
I would say no, right? So I think with that, and along those lines, like, we'll rotate years. So 1 year will be with my family for Christmas, the other year with my wife's family.
Sure.
We flip flop with Thanksgiving. So I think when we talk about that, I wouldn't say anything necessarily I would again, reading the night before Christmas to the kids, as they're growing up, like that used to be our tradition, but nothing too specific that comes to mind.
Do you have a lot of family that live around where you do, like in the same area?
Yeah, a decent amount. I mean, some have relocated over the years, but for my entire side of the family, my sisters, my parents are here. On my wife's side, a little more spread out now, but it's yeah, but everyone does a good job of getting together around the holiday, and we always figure that out.
Yeah, for sure. My family, like my mother's side, nobody's here. Like
Okay.
my mother and my sister live in Virginia. Most of my mother's side is quite frankly old and dead. My dad's side, haven't seen them in decades. They're in New Jersey, New York. My wife has an incredibly close family that does everything together. And I'm gonna be honest, for years when we were first got together, it was kind of annoying almost to me. Like they do everything together. Like they're each other's best friends. Like the cousins are also best friends, which is through the years I really came to love that. But
Yeah.
at the time it was just weird to me. Like you do all this family stuff, and it's just because I didn't. Anyway, so Christmas Eve is like the big, aunts and uncles and cousins. Everyone gets together. It's at the same house every year for Christmas Eve, and then Christmas morning we all do our own immediate family stuff, and then, like I said, the adults will converge on Christmas. Dude, Christmas, I gotta say this. I'll end this with this too. This is like a gamut of emotions for me because Christmas has been like the worst week of my life and the best week. Like some of the worst things of my life and some of the best things of my life have happened on Christmas. My dad died in 1990. So you're talking over 30 some years ago, but he died 2 days before Christmas on the 23rd. My son, I just told you, he's turning 21 tomorrow or today when you're listening, December 21st. Obviously, that's one of the best days of my life. I
Yeah.
proposed to my wife 10 years to the day almost was December 22nd. I proposed to my wife in the year 2000. So it's like so much shit has happened huge in my life, good and bad, in the couple days before Christmas. But I'm going to enjoy this one as long as the Bills beat the Chargers anyway.
Put a lot of pressure on this football game, but you know
I
what?
am.
Despite all those things, the highs and the lows, I mean, I think when you just look at everything, it's you got a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
definitely
just,
do. I
you know,
definitely do. I
it's just
definitely
yeah, it makes it all pretty special. And it sounds like you got some pretty good traditions yourself too, which is kind of nice.
I do, man. And I'm very happy. Like I say, it's things are going great, and I appreciate having you on the show, doing this almost every week with me, and I will have you back next week. We'll preview the Patriots. We'll talk about some of the shit that we did on Christmas, some of the stuff that went down, and good God, man, I hope we're talking about or at least putting the bow on a Bills win, because you're right, I am putting too much on this football game, and they can't lose. But I appreciate you, man. I always appreciate you having on.
Now, I appreciate you too, and I hope you have a great holiday and a Merry Christmas.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in, for listening, for watching. I actually am going to be back with one more episode tomorrow as well. For Anthony Marino, I'm Patrick Moran. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.